Shalom Aleichem. Today is Tes Adar Tavshin Pei. It's an auspicious day when the Frierdiker Rebbe and his family arrived in America 80 years ago, 1940. This day, the Rebbe told us many times, is when Chasidei came to the Western Hemisphere, and the message is that the Western Hemisphere, as it's known in Hebrew, is Chatzi Kader HaTachtoin, which means you must take the Tachtoin, the lowest of the low, and elevate it and infuse it with Ruchnius. So with that, I'll share a few thoughts and ideas and stories about Tes Adar and its importance today, 80 years later. This day marks when Chabad Lubavitch came to America and established its roots here. For 102 years, Lubavitch was in the city of Lubavitch, and then later it wandered to Rostov, and from Rostov to Leningrad, and from Leningrad to Riga, and from Riga to Warsaw, and from Warsaw to Otfotsk, and finally its home was moved in a permanent way to the United States of America, to New York. When the Frierdiker Rebbe came on Tes Adar, a group of his supporters who helped bring him here met with him at the Graystone Hotel, which, by the way, still exists. And I know someone who is a manager there. It's owned by Jews, seemingly Hasidic Jews. And the room where the Rebbe stayed is still there, and the place where he had his Farbrengen is still there. Of course, there's been renovations inside, but the outside facade of the facility and in the inside still remains. So that afternoon, his supporters met with him, and they said that they wanted Rebbe to relax. The Rebbe already was in a wheelchair. Frierdiker Rebbe was in a wheelchair. He wasn't well. He had gone through so many difficulties. And so they told him that he should relax, take it easy, rest up. Also, they intimated to him that this is America, and what he was able to demand and expect and do in Europe won't fly here in America. And they meant, with the Hasidishkeit and everything else that European Hasidic Jewry represented. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes that night, during Krishma Shelamita, before he went to sleep, he cried bitterly that here his own people, his supporters who brought him to America, are telling him to take it easy and don't expect to do the same thing that you did in Europe, Yiddishkeit-wise. And this really bothered him. Nonetheless, during the Farbrengen that he made for the public later in the evening of Tes Adar, which would be tonight, he said, he made the announcement that it was decided to open up a Lubavitch Yeshiva Teim Chitmimim tomorrow morning, Yud Adar. And so it was. That's when the American Tmimim who were learning with Rabbi Jacobson were the first students of Teim Chitmimim of the Lubavitch Yeshiva, which today, of course, is at 770. I was told that Rabbi Jacobson was amongst the Agudas Chabad, and when the Frierdiker Rebbe came, he brought Rabbi Garari, his son-in-law, and the family. And it was requested to transfer the positions of leadership in Agudas Chabad and other positions, the head of the Kfuda, the Chabad Burial Society, from Rabbi Jacobson to Rabbi Garari. And Rabbi Jacobson, without the blink of an eye, just gave over everything. He was an emissary for the Frierdiker Rebbe, and while the Rebbe was in Europe, he led things here in America. When the Frierdiker Rebbe came with Rabbi Gerari, the Rashag, and the Rebbe wanted that the Rashag should become the in charge, the director of Agudas Chabad and other organizations. Rabbi Jacobson had no problem, and he gave it right away. And I say this because to understand that the Agudas Chabad was a great organization, but when the Rebbe came, when the Frierdiker Rebbe came, everything changed. And what did he establish? He established Lubavitch with all of its sanctity and its purity and its holiness here. And it was at a time when the war began, and it was during the 5 years from 40 to 39 to 45, all the tzaras and all the difficulties, and the Rebbe kept on going. And then he had internal issues, meaning within the Jewish community, within the Frum community, where his own brothers opposed him, which I've written about extensively to understand what was going on at the time in the various books like Lakewood and Lubavitch, Rabbi Hutter and the Rebbe, Tervadas and Lubavitch. In all of these various books, one gets a picture of what was going on in America during that time in New York, and how the Frierdiker Rebbe had difficulties because of certain leaders and groups and movements. But nevertheless, he continued further. He didn't take a back seat and say, maybe we should give in and and join other groups, and not that he didn't want to join them, but for whatever reason it didn't work out. And his message that we live with 80 years later is that Chabad Chasidus is alive and well worldwide, and it was planted here with the Frierdiker Rebbe coming Tes Adar. So a message and a request and a suggestion that I have for all the listeners is to, in addition to learning Likutei Torah and Torah Shabbos day, Shabbos morning, and the Rebbe's Maamarim, to also learn Maamarim of the Frierdiker Rebbe, because they're very, very Avoda Maamarim. They talk to the heart. There's tremendous amount of psychology, and it's a more kind of easier type of learning for Balabatim. And if you study them well, you'll see there's plenty of Haskalah, depth of intellectualism and Hasidic ideas, etc. So to appreciate the Frierdiker Rebbe and what he did for us, and of course bringing our Rebbe here, who took it on a whole different level as we see today, it would be a good idea to incorporate in your learning schedule every day, or once a week, or twice a week, as much as you can, some of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maamarim, the Avoda Maamarim. You can begin with Sefer Maamarim Kuntreisim Chelik Aleph, which has many of these type of Maamarim in one Sefer. May Hashem help that the schus of this great day, Tes Adar, we should see the Geula Shleima speedily in our day. Amen v'amen. Reunited with the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe and all the tzaddikim and rabbeim, Bibinyan, Beis Hamikdash, Yerushalayim. We want Mashiach now.